Captain Shiralis stood on the bridge of her battleship, looking into the void of space. Her sleek Vark of form flowing with grace in every step, turn, or even breath, with the clean, elegant uniform of the Galactic Union. All around her were crew members hard at work on the pristine flagship of her sector. Turning her head slightly was all she needed to see the different stations and could read their displays. Sensors reporting no unusual traffic in the sector. Ship systems nominal. Security on high alert. What? She turned to look back and then remembered the shuttle that docked using an unusual code, one that she had given to a particular person, and she sighed. The door to the bridge slid open. The normally silent panels seemed to give off a sense of being slammed open, even though physical interaction with them wouldn't change their speed. The next sound was a heavy boot almost slamming through the metal floor, followed by a loud metal clang of another step from a metal prosthetic, a robotic industrial arm repurposed as a leg. Then came the smell of smoke, something that would have usually caused alarm, but because she knew who was on her bridge. Still looking out into the vastness of space, as if it would transport her anywhere but here, a gravelly voice spoke. "Captain on the bridge." "There is only one captain of this ship, and she is standing in front of you. Also, I'm glad I skipped my last meal, or else I'm sure it will make a return once I turn around." Shalaris turned to look at the human standing on her bridge. His form is larger than that of the average human. His clothes looked like they hadn't been washed in days, and were made over 100 years ago, having been passed down from someone of a similar build. A large industrial robotic arm, repurposed as a leg, seemed to look better than a real prosthetic leg would on his form. His large, unkempt beard was barely a distraction from his face, where one eye was missing. And skin had grown over where it once was, with a scar that hadn't been treated by a doctor with a medical degree, and almost hidden from view by the pillar of smoke from a very much against regulation cigar in the corner of his mouth. "Welcome aboard, Pirate Emperor Sam. You got fat." Sam let out a low chuckle as he moved up next to Shalaris and pulled her into a big hug, lifting her off her feet for a moment before setting her back down. "Please don't use that name. I never wanted to be in charge of a budding empire, but here I am." He took a drag from his cigar before letting it out, and Shalaris stood in place as a show of strength, even though her lungs were burning from waiting for enough of the smoke to dissipate that it wouldn't make her cough. "So, this is the place you wanted to meet?" Shalaris was about to speak when she noticed the nervous looks from her crew and decided secrecy was more of a hindrance than help at this point. "Yes, thank you for agreeing to help us with this mission. As you know, the Galactic Union is at war with the Rodak Confederacy." The name got a visible scowl from the human, who wasn't mad at anyone in the room, but still put several crew members close to needing a change of uniform. As such, one of their generals has made a habit of withholding reinforcements for a front, only to jump 2 sectors away to reappear. Nodding to the statement, Sam interjected. "From my understanding, they were heading away from this sector with that tactic." Shalaris gave him a look of annoyance, as if she hadn't finished her statement, then continued her statement. "Yes, that is their typical strategy, but I believe they are going to make a drastic change in their plan. The Union is already preparing for what they normally do, and they intend to beat the Rodaks to that area with a large force." She then held up a finger to stop Sam from speaking. "However, the Rodaks have been moving a much larger amount of FTL fuel than they normally do for this type of maneuver, and this sector, this location, is the most likely point they will jump into Union space." Lowering the finger to allow Sam to speak. Taking another drag of his cigar, Sam held it out and tapped it, dropping the ashes onto the pristine floor before returning it to his mouth. A cleaner bot slowly moved to the spot to clean the ashes, as it had been working so hard that the battery was about to die. Shalaris never saw a bot that had more of a look of thank God on his non-existent face, as it did when another bot showed up to take its place, before turning her attention back to Sam as he spoke. "So, you called in your favour to have us help you because your precious Union thought you were not right, and that your only hope is the same pirate that you've been hunting for the past 20 years. getting a nod and a look that said, "Precisely," only for another hearty chuckle to leave Sam, as he put an arm around Shalaris and turned to look at her crew. "You lot are a lucky lot. Your captain here is probably the only Union officer I would listen to, and would be glad to offer my aid. After all, you did save my life." The crew gave some low whispers as Shalaris sighed. "You did that on purpose." As Sam gave a toothy grin, the flat teeth showing with sharp canines poking out, was perfect for a human. The look of a predatory species hidden as a non-predatory one. "Guilty." And the Varkov turned. "I'm sure you all like to hear this story." Sam motioned with his arms for them to gather, and a few started to move until Shalaris shot them a look, causing them to return to their stations. Taking a deep breath, Shalaris started before Sam could set the mood. With a calm, soft look, she said, "It was when I was a junior officer. I was aboard the GU frigate Dartham when a Rodak destroyer came out of FTO and opened fire. It didn't take long for things to become dire, and I volunteered with 7 others to board a crash fighter and sabotage the enemy ship so the Dartham could escape. I assumed it would be a one-way mission." That is when Sam joined in. "And it would have been if it wasn't for a handsome young human." His arms went wide as if he was some grand hero. "I was aboard that same destroyer as a prisoner. My ship had been captured, and my crew and I had been interrogated for a month. They killed every member of my crew in front of me, as if that would make me give up my home station. I'd been biding my time and preparing to escape when the sounds of battle told me that all my plans would be for nothing." Shalaris rolled her eyes as, while he wasn't exactly lying, his storytelling embellishments were quite cheesy to someone who was there. Captain Shalaris continued, "We had broken into the Rodak armory. It was a lucky place to hit, as it meant their response time would be greatly reduced. We sabotaged what we could and split into 2 teams. The one I was with happened to come across the brig next." She looked at Sam from the corner of her eye, and she could see Sam waiting for the handoff. She sighed and let him join in. Sam raised his arms. "There I was in my cell, and I could hear the sound of hope. Union blaster fire, but there was more Ratti." Getting cut off by a couch from Shalaris. Rodak blaster fire. It was her ship, after all, and he would have to follow her protocol for language. "Rodak?" Sam paused to get a nod of approval from Shalaris. "Blaster fire, drowning out the Union blaster fire. Eventually, I saw your captain and another Union officer. You might have heard of him." Pausing for dramatic effect. "A young officer who had come to be known as Admiral Sardine." Sam froze as he just realized he used the nickname he and his crew used. I mean, Admiral Sadovin. Deciding to stop and let the clearly angry Shalaris restore some order. "We have been caught off guard by the security team and lost 2 of our unit. Admiral Sardovin?" Turning to look at Sam as she put extra emphasis on the Admiral's name, as if it would keep Sam from using his nickname for the Admiral again, "and I were eventually pinned down next to a cell containing a loud and obnoxious human who kept trying to get our attention." Leaving out how he had actually managed to get their attention. Sam smiled, and the look he got said to tread carefully. "So I reached out and tapped Shalaris on the, shoulder, and unfairly got a blaster pointed at my face." Even though several members of the crew were enthralled by his telling of the story, it was quite clear the pointing of the blaster wasn't unfair. "And I told her, I have an escape plan already set up to get me to my ship in the hangar. If you let me out, I can help you get to it, and we can escape this space bomb." Getting a few looks of confusion. Shalaris nodded. Apparently Sam had gotten access to the ship's computer several times and learned of a fatal flaw in the ship's design. If specific pilots were physically disabled, the ship's sensors wouldn't register it, and an excess amount of fuel would be sent to the reactors regardless of the power status of the ship. This meant that if you disabled the cutoff for those pipes and cause a power outage for the whole ship, a reactor restart would be triggered, and one could destroy the ship. Sam nods and lets out a huff. Naturally, Shalaris wanted to do that and not escape, to ensure that it would blow up with us in the process. Needless to say, the other team got to the ship's fire control station and disabled it, allowing the Dartham to escape, making the ensured destruction of the destroyer unnecessary. He stood up and posed to emphasize the danger of their situation. Deciding to move things along, Shalaris stepped in front of Sam. So our mission changed from one of destroy to one of escape. We sent a secure message to the other team to meet us in the hangar, and we opened Sam's cell and told him that he better not try anything. It would be something I would regret instantly. Sam raised a finger. But not for long, as once freed, I told them we needed to go where the rats wouldn't be able to track us, and that I had a plan to help. I unleashed the first part of my plan. Spreading his arms wide as if making a grand decision. Opening all the cells. Shalaris sighed, as it was the second thing that made her regret opening Sam's cell. And after a little explanation of the concept of the enemy of my enemy is my friend to the recently liberated new allies, and some electrical diplomacy from a Union stun baton, we were on our way. Taking a moment to pose in a stern, controlled manner that was quite the opposite of the showmanship of the human, Shalaris continued. The prisoners were in such a frenzy that they ran off to fight the Rodak without attempting to grab weapons, and Sam led us around. On a path he used when he was able to slip out of his cell. She looked around with an annoyed look many of the crew had seen when they were about to get chewed out across her face. We ran into another Rodak patrol sooner than we would have hoped, and he ran to leave us there as a distraction, as the event we were going to use was behind us. Sam laughed and put a hand on her shoulder. Oh, come on, you still think that? I thought that with all the chaos going on, there wouldn't be any patrols between the hangar and us, and the other prisoners would take care of them. Besides, I did fight that patrol that was coming up behind us, and made them dive for cover before they could get in a good defensive position. As your captain and the future admiral found me fighting off that other patrol, I told them about the vent in the ceiling, which was big enough for us to get through. The admiral went first to make sure it was safe, followed by Shalaris. Eventually, I was able to get in. Turning to look at Shalaris, as if he had been hurt by what was done to him. Without the assistance others had. Before turning back to the crew, we crawled to the hangar, unsure of if we would make it in time, and things were looking grim. Sam looked back at Shalaris and smiled before getting a smack. What was that for? Shalaris pointed a finger. You know exactly what that is for. Sam nodded and shrugged, as he quite enjoyed the view that he had that day, after having been locked up for so long. The closest to another female was a bogating, a species that was technically both and neither at the same time. Eventually, Shalaris continued. We got to the hangar and we thought it would be easy, as there were no alarms, and everyone was walking around until the other unit came in, or more precisely, what was left of them. I only saw one, Lieutenant Markov, one of the few humans serving in the Union military, and what I saw made me realize why the Rodak glassed Earth soon after contact with humans was made. His injuries were severe, and yet he was still fighting. Half the injuries I saw in him would have been fatal for other species. Sam took his hat off as a sign of respect. Sam spoke softly, in a soft manner that was quite the opposite of how he looked. I wanted to save the lad, but the hangar was too large and, well... Sam laughs. He figured if he couldn't use the ships, no one should, and blew one up, starting a chain reaction. Luckily, my ship wasn't caught in the destruction. Before motioning to his face and leg. But I was. Getting a look of amazement from the crew, as this was quite an epic tale for them. They knew the captain had gotten her first promotion and Union honor from a suicide mission, but not much was known about it from the reports. You weren't the only one caught in the explosions. Sardavin had a piece of metal lodged in his abdomen. I was ordered to take Sam aboard his ship, and Sardavin covered our escape. He was ready to make his last stand to ensure we made it out of there. Turning to look Sam over. If you were as big as you are now, we never would have made it. Causing Sam to laugh, put an arm around Shalaris and pull her close once more. Don't be that way, we're all friends here. So we got aboard the ship, and I jumped the pilot's chair and started her up. He looked around. Humans tend to refer to our ships as females, as they are quite beautiful and can be temperamental. getting a few laughs from the joke and a glare from the captain that he didn't need to see to know she had. "Your captain saw all the ship systems come online and thought I was going to blast my way out of the hangar and leave Sardavin behind." Sam caught himself this time. Nodding to his statement and glad that he didn't use the insult, Shalaris smiled a little, as even her calm and stern exterior was starting to melt, as she got into the story during its climax. "That was when he stood up, pushed me into the chair, and told me what to press to get the ship out of the hangar. He grabbed an old human weapon known as a rifle, hopped to the ramp of the ship and started shooting." Sam nodded and smiled, and pointed to himself in an "I did that" fashion. "I might have been and still am a pirate, but I'm also a man of honor, and I couldn't live with myself if I left someone who was willing to put their life on the line for me to die in my place. Once the future admiral was on board, we closed up the ship, and that was when my..." bringing his hand up to his face to give a chef's kiss, "beautiful plan went into motion." Shalaris took a deep breath, as this part would be hard to admit. "His program went into action. The hangar doors opened without the shielding in place." A hand raised up, and she put her own up to stop it. Markov was laying dead under a Rodak fighter, with 3 dead Rodaks around him, and 2 more. Pausing as remembering what she saw was still hard, shooting him several times to make sure he was dead. When I saw those 2 fly out into space, I felt no greater pleasure. We took off, and Sam came back to take control of the ship once more. Sam gave Shirali's shoulder a light squeeze for comfort, as he knew Markov was a good friend of the captain. "So while Shalari strapped Sardavin into a seat, I made evasive maneuvers that caused us to turn around and face the very ship we were trying to escape from, which had just gotten their main weapons back online and was charging to blast us out of space." And he looked over his audience with a smile. "But that was their mistake, for the reactors of those guns had their fuel shut-off valves locked in the open position." He put his arms out in an oops pose. "If they were to charge the main batteries to maximum power, and the system shut off before giving the command to stop charging, well, it was the most beautiful explosion I had seen." Putting his bald hands out before opening them to mimic the explosion. Shiralis nodded. "Though things weren't as simple as that. The Rodaks were making a push into Union space, so there were still several warships in the area. We were in a..." Turning, she saw Sam look like he was getting ready for her to insult him again. "Fast, but underpowered ship for combat," causing the pirate to smile, "and Sardavin was bleeding out and had several organs destroyed. Even though Sam had pulled him aboard, I did not think he was going to live." "So after taking care of my wounds, pulling..." He lifted his prosthetic leg up. "This off the fabrication bench, and uploaded prosthetic leg software, I took Sardavin to the medbay. He protested and said it was too late for him and that he was just glad to have gotten Shalaris off safely. I said sod off and might have violated every medical code in the book," giving a soft chuckle as he stepped back so Shalaris could continue. Shalaris took a deep breath to avoid shivering. She recalled the medical horror show, which was human surgery. "Some of the organs damaged helped remove toxins from the blood, as well as some major arteries." Sam hooked Admiral Sardavin up to a machine to remove toxins from the blood in a manner that was more like connecting him to the ship than a medical procedure. Having to take a moment to realize she was getting caught up in the storytelling, and had forgotten to look at the stations around her, as the crew did as well. It looked as if several FTL signals had appeared very far out from where they were, but there were no ships and sensors, and she couldn't see anything out of the viewports. Sam continued while Shalaris was distracted. "So with the future admiral taken care of, I tried making things as comfortable as possible for the 3 of us while we floated around. We talked about ethics, politics, and more importantly, why are we more similar than different? It also shaped me into the man I am today. I might be a pirate, but I try to be civilized about it. I make sure that those who don't fight or have been defeated are not killed. I don't steal the last of what a crew needs to get home and survive, and I don't raise space stations or colonies." Shalaris turned to Sam with a worried look, who smiled back and nodded, before motioning for her to continue talking. "We eventually did get rescued, but it was by another pirate ship. The captain of that ship wanted to have me and Sardovan executed, but Sam had given us his word that we wouldn't be. Needless to say, thanks to Sam, we are here, and that pirate captain is not. He took over the other captain's ship with a similar speech that he had given to the prisoners, regarding honouring one's word. The Union might be hostile to pirates, but we are helping humanity rebuild. We have been giving humans resources to restore their homeworld so they no longer need to turn to piracy. Even if Sam's group is making a new life for humanity in our sector. Sam smiles as suddenly 30 Rodak ships appeared, putting an end to their story and, to Sam's annoyance, cutting him off from the good stuff that Shalaris probably didn't want to have told to her crew. The crew scrambled. 2 Rodak battleships, 4 cruisers, 8 destroyers, 6 frigates, and 10 corvettes. Another crew member cried out. Captain, I'm getting a transmission from the lead battleship. Putting on screen now. A smug-looking rodent-like creature stood on screen, his twisted teeth in an even more twisted smile. Hello, Captain. A weaselly voice came on over the speaker. I'm going to offer you a chance to surrender, as I feel quite generous. Only to pause when he noticed the human standing with the captain. Is that the pirate scum, Sam? I must say this day just keeps getting better. Giving a snorted laugh. Hand him over, and I will happily let you leave. And just as he was about to speak again, Sam interrupted him. In a mocking tone similar to the Rodak's own. On second thought, I shall just destroy your ship and everyone on it. This proves how much of an inferior rat-faced sludge-licker I really am. Sam turned to Shalaris, who was starting to look shocked when Sam winked and pointed to the screen she had seen earlier. Shalaris smiled and shook her head. I think you got it wrong. He looks more like bung-licker than sludge-licker. The Rodak's face started to twist in anger. How dare you speak to me that way? I was going to be generous and let you die quickly, but now I will disable your ship and take you prisoner, so you can die a slow and painful death. You will beg me for... Sam raised an arm and pointed 2 fingers at the image with his thumb up, before twitching his wrist back. A red light shot out from his ship towards the Rodak fleet. What was that? A space flare? Do you expect me to get scared of a space flare? Giving another snort laugh, which was joined by the last of his crew. Shalaris heard one of her own over the laughing Rodaks. Captain, 20 power signatures just came online. Wait, no, 470... Captain? And the face of the Rodak showed they had also just detected the same thing. Suddenly, hundreds of new stars appeared in the sky. Only they weren't stars. They were lights aboard 200 pirate vessels, all painted as black as the void of space, with the lights being the only way to know where they were. Probably so they wouldn't fly into one another in the impeding battle. Shortly after, even more lights appeared like comets flying towards the Rodak ships. The moving lights turned out to be missiles launched by the pirate ships in a spread that would make it impossible to evade them all. Before the first volley made impact, a second was already launched, and then a third. Sam turned, putting his arm around Shalaris as the panicked screams of the Rodaks could be heard in the background, shouting for evasive maneuvers, and a few more insults as that was going to be the only thing the captain of the Rodak ship could hit Shalaris and Sam with. Sam stopped as he paused to turn back. By the way, Karvavik. The name filled with vile hatred. The Rodak's face lost all colour. I never said my name, Sam laughed. Every human knows the name and face of the one who ordered Earth to be glassed. I'm just glad it is my fleet that is going to kill your ass. Before turning to walk off the bridge with Captain Shalaris. I have a bottle of whiskey from 2053 that I've been saving for an occasion like this. Care to join me? Shalaris was about to turn and look back to her crew, only to hear the signal from Karvavik getting cut off in an explosion, a British crew member reporting the destruction of several Rodak ships, and pirate missiles self-destructing before coming near the Union ships. She looked at Sam and smiled, knowing she wasn't going to be able to say no to this, and part of her didn't want to. I would love to.